in heaven, bring him in my city. That's where God belongs, in my city. 'Cause you run it anyway, you run it in my city.
In my city, Get Rooted Live. Welcome, Thursday night, 9 p.m. Glad you guys could tune in. A little booster to your faith. Hopefully this will provide you that. And that was In My City by an artist formerly known as C Light, and now is Andy Mineo on Reach Records. And the concept is, we want God in my city. What does your city look like? Is it filled with God, or is it filled with headlines like this? In my city, just last night, it says 2 shot overnight. There was a standoff on 2 different parts of town, a shootout, leaving 2 individuals wounded. And the police officer at the end says, "We don't feel there is any threat to the community right now," adding he does not believe this incident was random. Have you noticed that their evil is becoming more obvious, not as rare? And maybe partly is because we live in an information society where stories can be broadcasted within seconds, things can be tweeted, they can be posted about, they can be shared within minutes, and you can learn about good news or bad news within seconds. Well, we know that evil started all the way back in the garden when we turned our hearts away from God. But what is truly going on? It's 2012, so people are, talking things about the weather or increased issues going on in the world, war, etc. But I do know this: as I look in my city, I see a lot of different things that are disturbing. I see increased complacency, increased negativity. Articles like this, there's been increased violence, drug abuse. Statistics are increased for those that are dropping out of school. Pretty concerning. And you start to think, man, what is really wrong with the world? And you start to think, all these people got issues, and why do they have issues? And I think it can be summed up like, hold on. I got something in my eye. Can you help me see it? Is it there? Hold on. Is it there? Boom! I think it can be summed up like this. What is wrong with the world? Matthew 7:1. That will make sense right here. Judge not that you be not judged, for with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take that speck out of your eye, when there is a log in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take out the log of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. Do not give dogs what is holy, and do not throw your pearls before pigs, lest they trample them underfoot and turn to attack you. I could call this passage, What's Up, Forrest? Because a lot of times when we say we want to talk about what's wrong with the world and we list all these issues, and if I was to ask you that question, what's wrong with the world, it's the first thing that pops in your mind. Typically it's somebody else or something else. And it can all be summed up with when we look inside our eye. And I say what's up, forest, because it's kind of like we got a forest in our own eye, filled with logs, filled with trees, and we're looking at the speck in somebody else's eye. This is a great place to start biblically, because we understand and we see that God holds those that know the truth more accountable. It'd be better to never have known the truth than to know it and to not do something with it. He comes to look, and he wants his church first and foremost. That's where he's looking first and foremost. And if we want to see our cities transform, God first wants to start in the heart of us. Because what happens is, a lot of times when we're looking at other individuals, it's rooted out of all types of different motives. So when you hear a sermon and you're thinking, oh, I wish somebody was hearing this, what is the purpose of that? What's your heart and what's your motive and what's your intention when you want to solve people? Or if you read an article that says 2 shootouts in your city, or you hear about darkness in your city, does our heart move with compassion? Do we recognize that we're broken and we're no different than any other sinner? out there, because that's how God views it first. He wants us to deal with our own junk first and foremost. So tonight, the goal is that we would understand the heart of God, that He first wants us to look internal and examine our hearts before Him, and then look at a game plan and application towards others. Because a lot of times our motive at looking at somebody else's speck is out of jealousy and selfish ambition. James chapter 3, verse 14 talks about it. But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast and be false to the truth. This is not the wisdom that comes down from above, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there will be disorder in every vile practice. Some translation will say every evil practice. So as we look at other people and we see all these issues that are wrong with the world, we got to really check our hearts of a couple of these areas right here, because if there's bitter jealousy and selfish ambition, we will actually bring disorder, and we will bring every vile practice / every evil practice to the scene, to the scenario. Because God first wants us to deal with the issues in our own hearts. And as we have those issues in our own hearts, then we move in compassion towards others. Because doesn't God call us to be set apart? Doesn't He call us first to be not like others? Well, isn't it so easy to point out what's wrong with other people? Think about in today's media, when somebody gets in trouble, or you have a celebrity that deals with a certain issue, or if their marriage is struggling, or if they get busted for drunk driving, what does everybody do? Oh, look at that person, he's horrible. Oh, look at it. Da, da, da. We never really look at their story or their life. We don't first and foremost come to the table like a broken sinner, because once we recognize that we were dead in our sin, and we are filled with a huge log, and God sees them, the way we're supposed to approach them is that they have a speck, and we're supposed to gently restore an individual. Aren't we just like, don't we become just like them if we're just always just like the world when we're typing and we're saying negative things about people? Well, in Ephesians chapter 5, God calls us to a high standard throughout the whole Bible as Christians. Verse 15, look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise but as wise, making the best use of the time, because the days are evil. Therefore do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. And then it goes on to say, do not get drunk with wine, for that is debauchery, but be filled with the Spirit, addressing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody to the Lord with your heart, giving thanks always and for everything to God the Father in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, submitting to one another out of reverence for Christ. 1 Peter 1:16 says, you shall be holy, for I am holy. We see 1 John chapter 2, do not love the world of the things in it. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and the pride of life is not from the Father, but is from the world. And the world is passing away along with its desires, but whoever does the will of God abides forever. In my city, what is wrong with the world? The first place to start is, do I have something in my eye? What is that? Look real close. It's a log. I like to say it's a forest. The thing is so big it's not even cut down sometimes. It's bigger than a log. So what's up, forest? 3 little steps that I think is pertinent to transforming our city tonight. First and foremost is, first, be set apart. God has called us to not be like the world. We are not supposed to be in the world. We're supposed to be in it but not of it. We are supposed to partake and be about the Lord's will, even though we are on this mission on a day-to-day basis. The days are evil. We must be set apart, set aside. The second thing is this: pray for your city in God's will to come from heaven and to be done on earth. The third thing is, as individuals that first have been set apart and examining their own hearts, let your light shine. And then as you approach somebody with a speck, it will come off as that you really care and you first and foremost have dealt with your issues. Because when you come guilty to the scene, We don't read articles and say, oh man, how could somebody do that? We read articles and we recognize, wow, that's the effects of a broken world. I think of, as I'm a huge basketball fan, and growing up I remember the Bad Boys and the Pistons. They were back-to-back champs. It was huge. I remember I had Wheaties boxes, and I wrapped them up in cellophane, and I kept them because I thought they were going to be worth something, and then they got dented and dinged up, and I was really deflated when I found out that people had them like in mint plastic cases and they were only doing like 50 bucks. Bummed. But Dennis Rodman, questionably the greatest rebounder of all time, was part of the Bad Boys, and he went to a couple other teams. You might remember he's with the Bulls. He was also with San Antonio Spurs. And Rodman, though, in his personal life, had exhibited some things that were questionable. Dressed up as a girl, tattoos everywhere, and he was really taking the bad boy image to the whole point. A little too far, some would say. And many people criticized and questioned what was Rodman about and how could he do those type of things. But I would ask you to just go and read Dennis Rodman's bio on Wikipedia. When you read his bio on Wikipedia, you find out his dad left at a young age. He attempted suicide in '93. Rodman grew up in a household dominated by women. He had an early growth spurt and he felt uncomfortable. He didn't even know. He questioned his sexuality. His first sexual experience was he lost his virginity when he was 20 years old with a prostitute. And he described it as an unpleasant experience. See, those are the type of things when you start to think, when you approach somebody and you might see their speck and you think it's a log, and you might see issues in someone's life, but when you actually understand their story, you understand that they're broken just like all of us. And who are we to now approach them outside of the love and the grace that God has shown us? And let's not just judge and see the fruit of sin. Let's judge and get deeper and get like Jesus, how he responded to the crowd. He responded with compassion, therefore he fed them. As we have compassion, we reach through what we see on the surface and we dive into the story. So let our light shine to people in love and compassion was the third point. So those 3 points again, to let God shine and reign in your city and to deal with what's wrong with the world, first and foremost is to be set apart. Deal with the fact that I have issues first. I have a log. Number 2, pray for your city and God's will to be done, because we know that the battle is fought on our knees and help is so close to the ground, on the carpet. And 3, let the light shine in love and compassion, and let's move towards the crowds and use. I just referenced the Dennis Rodman story because I thought he took a lot of unjustified criticism, and he's a man just like all of us. And when you learn about more of his story, you recognize, man, if someone read my bio, they would understand a lot more too. And people have been exposed to things at a young age, traumatic events or situations that we know only Christ can restore and redeem. So as Christians, we need to be set apart, praying for our city, making a difference. Let's go. Let's make it happen in my city. Boom. Where God belongs. See you next time, next week. I'm not sure who will be up, but they'll be awesome.